Did you know there's a character in the Harry Potter universe who witnessed over 60 years of Hogwarts history? A man who met Tom Riddle when he was still just a seemingly brilliant student, who witnessed the rise and fall of Voldemort, and who became the link between entire generations of wizards. Today we'll delve into the full story of Rubeus Hagrid, the half-giant who captured hearts around the world, and whose life is far more complex and fascinating than you might imagine. But before we begin this epic journey through the life of our beloved Hagrid, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, subscribe now. We're almost reaching our goal of 1,000 subscribers, and your support is crucial. Turn on the bell so you don't miss any content about the wizarding world. And in the comments tell me, which city are you watching this video from? Get ready for a story that will move you, surprise you, and make you see Hagrid in a new light. This is the complete biography of the man who dedicated his entire life to Hogwarts. Rubeus Hagrid was born on December 6, 1928, the fruit of an unlikely union between a wizard and a giantess. His father was a short wizard, while his mother, Fridwulfa, was a giantess with a violent temper. This genetic combination resulted in Hagrid being a half-giant, inheriting his mother's imposing stature, but possessing his father's magical ability and gentle heart. Hagrid's childhood was marked by maternal absence. Fridwulfa abandoned the family when Hagrid was still very young, leaving him in the care of his father. This abandonment left deep scars on Hagrid, who grew up without ever truly knowing maternal love. His father, on the other hand, was a kind man who did his best to raise his son alone, despite the difficulties imposed by Hagrid's unique nature. From an early age, Hagrid demonstrated a natural affinity for magical creatures. While other children played with dolls or conventional toys, Hagrid was drawn to strange and dangerous animals. This passion, which would later become his trademark, was already evident in his early years. Young Hagrid grew up knowing he was different. His height, which even in childhood surpassed that of much older children, and his immense strength made him stand out wherever he went. But it was his father who taught him that being different wasn't necessarily a bad thing, and that everyone had their own special place in the world. In 1940, at age 11, Hagrid received his Hogwarts letter. For him, who had grown up hearing stories about the School of Magic, this was one of the happiest moments of his life. Finally, he would find his place in the wizarding world and could develop his magical abilities properly. Hagrid was sorted into Gryffindor House, a choice that made perfect sense considering his courageous and loyal nature. From his first day at Hogwarts, he stood out not only for his impressive stature, but also for his warm personality and genuine love for all magical creatures. During his student years, Hagrid quickly became known for two things: his devotion to the most dangerous and strange magical creatures, and his unwavering loyalty to his friends. He had a natural tendency to get into trouble, especially when it came to defending an animal others considered dangerous or useless. It was during this period that Hagrid began to develop his special relationship with Albus Dumbledore, who was then the Transfiguration Professor. Dumbledore recognized in Hagrid a pure heart and rare loyalty, qualities he would value for the rest of their lives. Hagrid's student years were also marked by his growing reputation as someone who could procure rare and exotic magical creatures. Even as a minor, he already demonstrated an impressive ability to locate and care for animals others considered untamable. The year 1943 marked a turning point in Hagrid's life. It was in this year that the Chamber of Secrets was opened for the first time in decades, spreading terror throughout Hogwarts. Students were petrified by a mysterious creature, and the school was on the verge of closure. Tom Riddle, a model sixth-year Slytherin student, discovered the true identity of the person responsible for opening the chamber: himself. Riddle had found Salazar Slytherin's diary and discovered how to control the basilisk that lived deep within the school. But when a student died, Myrtle, who would later become Moaning Myrtle, Riddle realized he needed a scapegoat. Hagrid, with his well-known love of dangerous creatures and his possession of an acromantula, a giant spider named Aragog, became the perfect target. Riddle, already demonstrating his manipulative and charming abilities, managed to convince the authorities that Hagrid was responsible for the attacks. The truth was that Hagrid had found Aragog as a cub and was secretly raising him in the halls of Hogwarts. While acromantulas were dangerous creatures, Aragog had never harmed anyone and certainly wasn't capable of petrifying students. But to the authorities, Riddle's explanation seemed logical. Hagrid, the troubled student with his obsession with monsters, had lost control of his creature. Hagrid's expulsion from Hogwarts was one of the most traumatic moments of his life. At 13, he found himself not only removed from the school he loved, but also branded a criminal responsible for the death of a fellow student. His wand was broken, symbolically destroying his dreams of becoming a fully fledged wizard. Dumbledore, however, never believed Hagrid was guilty. He knew that the young half-giant, despite his reckless nature, would never intentionally harm another human being. It was Dumbledore who interceded with the Ministry of Magic to allow Hagrid to remain at Hogwarts as assistant gamekeeper. Dumbledore's decision changed the course of Hagrid's life forever. Instead of being banished from the wizarding world, he found new purpose caring for the Hogwarts grounds and the creatures that lived in the Forbidden Forest. Although his formal magical education was over, his true education was just beginning. Hagrid's wand was officially broken when he was expelled from Hogwarts, but he managed to hide the fragments inside his trademark pink umbrella. Although forbidden from practicing magic, he occasionally performed small spells with the umbrella, always trying to keep it a secret, something many believe was possible thanks to Dumbledore's veiled permission. Over the next 25 years, Hagrid developed his role as Hogwarts gamekeeper. Under the guidance of Og, the previous gamekeeper, he learned all the secrets of the Forbidden Forest and became the unofficial protector of all magical creatures living on the school grounds. These were years of personal growth for Hagrid. Away from the spotlight and suspicion, he was able to dedicate himself completely to what he loved, caring for magical creatures. He developed deep relationships with centaurs, unicorns, thesauruses, and many other species that inhabited the forest. It was during this period that Hagrid established his reputation as someone who could communicate with virtually any magical creature. His half-giant nature gave him impressive physical strength, but it was his genuine kindness and patience that truly made the difference. Creatures that would attack other wizards instantly seemed to understand that Hagrid posed no threat. Hagrid also began developing his skills as a hybrid creature creator during this period. While many of his experiments were technically illegal, his motivation was always pure. He believed he could create even more fascinating creatures by combining the best traits of different species. The loneliness of these years also left a deep impression on Hagrid. With no close family and few true friends, he channeled his need for emotional connection into the creatures in his care. Every injured animal he healed, every orphaned cub he raised, became part of his extended family. In 1968, Albus Dumbledore was appointed headmaster of Hogwarts, and one of his first actions was to promote Hagrid from assistant gamekeeper to official gamekeeper. This promotion was not only a recognition of Hagrid's excellent work, but also a sign of the complete trust Dumbledore placed in him. With Lord Voldemort gaining power in the wizarding world, Dumbledore needed allies he could trust completely. Hagrid, with his unwavering loyalty and deep knowledge of magical creatures, became a valuable asset in the resistance against the dark arts. During this dark period, Hagrid served as an informal member of the First Order of the Phoenix. Although he was not officially recognized as a member due to the stigma of his expulsion from Hogwarts, he carried out important missions for Dumbledore, especially those involving magical creatures or travel to dangerous locations. It was Hagrid who helped establish communication with the giants, using his maternal heritage to try to persuade them not to ally with Voldemort. While these efforts were not entirely successful, they demonstrated Dumbledore's confidence in Hagrid's unique abilities. The war also brought personal losses for Hagrid. Many of the students he had seen growing up at Hogwarts joined the fight against Voldemort, and not all survived. Each death was a personal blow for Hagrid, who had developed deep relationships with generations of students. The night of October 31st, 1981, would change not only the history of the wizarding world, but also Hagrid's life forever. When Voldemort attacked the Potter family in Godric's Hollow, it was Hagrid who was given the most important task of his life: to rescue baby Harry Potter. Dumbledore sent Hagrid to Godric's Hollow as soon as he heard of the attack. What Hagrid found there was a scene of destruction. James and Lily Potter dead, the house in ruins, and a one-year-old baby crying amidst the wreckage, with only a lightning bolt scar as evidence of his encounter with the world's most dangerous wizard. Sirius Black arrived shortly after Hagrid and begged to keep Harry, as he was the boy's godfather. However, Hagrid had direct orders from Dumbledore to take the baby to his Muggle relatives. He could never disobey Dumbledore on such an important matter. With a heavy heart, Sirius handed his magical motorcycle over to Hagrid, entrusting him not only with its transportation, but also with the safety of his godson. Hagrid's journey with little Harry was both moving and symbolic. Flying through the night on Sirius's motorcycle, Hagrid carried in his arms not only a helpless child, but the very future of the wizarding world. During the flight, the baby slept peacefully against Hagrid's chest, creating a silent bond that would last forever. When they reached Privet Drive, Hagrid handed Harry over to the Dursleys' care with a heavy heart. He knew he was leaving the child with people who neither understood nor appreciated Harry's magical nature, but he trusted Dumbledore's judgment. The next 10 years were a period of relative peace for Hagrid, but also of great emotional responsibility. He was one of the few who knew where Harry Potter was and how he lived. He received periodic reports from Dumbledore on the boy's well-being, and each report about the Dursleys' mistreatment left him heartbroken. During this time, Hagrid continued his work as gamekeeper, but now with an additional purpose: preparing for Harry's eventual return to the wizarding world. He knew he would one day be called to retrieve the boy, and he wanted to make sure he could give Harry the warm welcome he deserved. Hagrid also used these years to expand his knowledge of magical creatures. He made several trips to study dragons in Romania, worked with Charlie Weasley on several projects, and established contacts throughout the wizarding world that would help him in his future adventures with Harry. The loneliness of these years was mitigated by the companionship of Fluffy, the three-headed dog Hagrid had purchased from a Greek stranger in a pub. Although Fluffy was technically too dangerous to keep as a pet, Hagrid found in him a loyal companion who understood his unique nature. During this time, Hagrid also developed his hut, transforming it into a welcoming home filled with mementos and treasures from his adventures. Every object in his home told a story, and he often spent lonely nights reminiscing about the people and creatures he had met over the years. July 31st, 1991, was one of the most exciting days of Hagrid's life. Finally, he was able to accomplish the task he had waited 10 years for, to retrieve Harry Potter and bring him back to the wizarding world. When Dumbledore gave him this mission, Hagrid could barely contain his joy. The encounter with Harry in the hut on the cliff was deeply emotional for Hagrid. Seeing the boy he had carried as a baby, now grown but still bearing the scar that marked his survival, brought back all the memories of that terrible night 10 years earlier. Hagrid was outraged to discover that the Dursleys had lied to Harry about his origins, saying his parents had died in a car accident. Seeing the disbelief and then wonder in Harry's eyes when he told him the truth about his magical origins was a moment Hagrid would cherish forever. The trip to Diagon Alley was a revelation for both of them. For Harry, it was his first real experience of the wizarding world. For Hagrid, it was a chance to see that world through the eyes of a child discovering magic for the first time. Each startled reaction from Harry renewed Hagrid's own sense of wonder. During his shopping spree, Hagrid committed several minor indiscretions, telling Harry about things he should have kept secret, such as the Philosopher's Stone kept at Hogwarts. His open nature and desire to share everything with Harry sometimes overcame his discretion. Harry's first year at Hogwarts brought back a sense of purpose to Hagrid's life that he hadn't felt in years. Having Harry, Ron, and Hermione regularly visit his hut, asking him questions about magical creatures, and simply enjoying his company filled an emotional void that Hagrid had carried for decades. Hagrid quickly became a father figure to Harry, offering the kind of affection and unconditional acceptance the boy had never experienced. His hut became a haven where Harry could relax and just be a child, away from the expectations and pressures he faced at the castle. During this year, Hagrid also faced one of his greatest personal challenges, raising a baby dragon in his hut. Norbert, the Norwegian forest dragon that hatched from an egg Hagrid had won in a bet, represented both his passion for dangerous creatures and his tendency to underestimate the risks involved. The decision to send Norbert to Romania with Charlie Weasley was one of the hardest Hagrid had ever had to make. He had grown attached to the little dragon as if it were his own son, but his fundamentally good nature made him recognize that keeping Norbert would be dangerous for both the dragon and the students. The end of that year brought one of Hagrid's greatest personal pains. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione discovered that he had unwittingly revealed how to get past Fluffy, Hagrid was devastated. The knowledge that his naive trust had been exploited by someone with malicious intent plunged him into guilt and self-criticism. More than ever, he feared that his kind and open nature might endanger those he most wanted to protect, especially Harry. Harry's second year at Hogwarts was particularly difficult for Hagrid, as it brought back the traumas of his youth. When the Chamber of Secrets was opened and students began to be petrified, Hagrid knew he would naturally be suspected due to the events of 1943. Hagrid's arrest was a devastating moment not only for him, but for the entire Hogwarts community, which had grown to love and respect him. Seeing the kind man being sent to Azkaban for a crime he didn't commit was a painful reminder of how prejudice and fear could distort justice. During his months in Azkaban, Hagrid experienced for the first time the horrors the Dementors could inflict. For someone with such a warm, positive, and affectionate nature, the suffocating atmosphere of hopelessness was especially devastating. Moment by moment, he was forced to relive his worst moments, the painful loss of his father, the humiliation of his expulsion from Hogwarts, and the dark night the Potters were murdered. Without any relief, these memories returned like open wounds, making his stay in Azkaban a silent and almost unbearable torture. What sustained Hagrid during this dark period was his unwavering faith in Dumbledore and his certainty that the truth would eventually come out. Even in his darkest moments, he never lost hope that he would be exonerated and could return to the life he loved. When he was finally released and exonerated of all charges, Hagrid returned to Hogwarts a hero. His first appearance in the Great Hall, where he received a standing ovation from the entire school, was one of the most moving moments of his life. Finally, after decades of suspicion and stigma, he was publicly acknowledged as innocent. Harry's third year brought a major change in Hagrid's life. He was promoted to Professor of Care of Magical Creatures. This promotion, orchestrated by Dumbledore, was both a recognition of his years of dedication and an attempt to fully reintegrate Hagrid into the Hogwarts academic community. Becoming a teacher was a dream Hagrid never dared to pursue, given his expulsion and incomplete education. The opportunity to teach and share his love of magical creatures with a new generation of students was deeply rewarding. However, the challenges of teaching soon became apparent. Hagrid, accustomed to creatures others considered dangerous, sometimes underestimated the risks to inexperienced students. His first lesson, in which Buckbeak the Hippogriff attacked Draco Malfoy, nearly ended his teaching career before it truly began. The ensuing trial against Buckbeak was one of the most harrowing experiences of Hagrid's life. Seeing a creature he loved sentenced to death for defending himself against a provocative student was a cruel reminder of how the wizarding world still remained rife with injustice. Buckbeak's apparent execution left a deep impression on Hagrid. Although he later discovered that Harry and Hermione had saved the Hippogriff using a time turner, the emotional trauma of believing he had lost a dear friend due to his own inadequacy as a teacher remained with him. During Harry's 4th year, Hagrid was sent by Dumbledore on one of the most dangerous missions of his life to try to recruit giants to the Order of the Phoenix. This mission capitalized on his half-giant heritage, but also put him in mortal danger. The journey to the mountains where the giants lived was physically and emotionally challenging for Hagrid. Accompanied by Madame Maxime, who was also half-giant, he had to navigate the violent and volatile politics of giant society, where leaders were often overthrown through brutal assassinations. During this mission, Hagrid learned more about his mother, Fridwulfa, than he had ever known before. Discovering that she had moved to a different giant community and had another son, Grop, was both thrilling and painful. The prospect of having a half-brother stirred complex feelings about family and abandonment. The mission's partial failure, many giants joined Voldemort despite his efforts, weighed heavily on Hagrid. He blamed himself for not being persuasive enough, even though the reality was that overcoming centuries of distrust between giants and wizards was a nearly impossible task. Returning to Hogwarts with Grop was another source of stress for Hagrid. Trying to civilize a young, violent giant while keeping his existence a secret proved to be one of the most difficult tasks he had ever faced. Harry's 5th year brought new challenges for Hagrid in the form of Dolores Umbridge, the new defense against the dark arts teacher, and eventually Hogwarts High Inquisitor. Dolores, with her authoritarian attitude and prejudice against half-beings, quickly became one of the greatest antagonists Hagrid had ever faced. Dolores's inspections of Hagrid's classes were humiliating and unfair. She deliberately misinterpreted his lessons, criticized teaching methods that worked perfectly well, and asked leading questions designed to make him appear incompetent. For Hagrid, who had finally found his place as an educator, these attacks were deeply hurtful. Dolores's increasing persecution forced Hagrid to take extraordinary precautions. He began teaching only completely harmless creatures, abandoning his passion for introducing students to more exotic and interesting species. This self-censorship was painful for someone who believed that education should expand horizons, not limit them. The climax of the conflict with Dolores came when she attempted to fire Hagrid. The scene in which Aurors attempted to arrest him, only to be repelled by his half-giant strength and the fierce loyalty of Fang, his loyal dog, became legendary among the students. His dramatic escape, leaving behind only cryptic instructions about caring for Grop, demonstrated both his courage and his continued loyalty to those he loved. The last 2 years of the 1990s were the most challenging of Hagrid's life. With Voldemort returning to power and the Second Wizarding War officially beginning, Hagrid once again found himself on the front lines of the resistance. During Harry's 6th year, Hagrid continued serving as a member of the Order of the Phoenix, participating in dangerous missions and providing crucial information about the Giants' movements. His hut became an informal meeting place for Resistance members, a place where strategies were discussed and injuries were tended to. Dumbledore's death was devastating for Hagrid. Losing the man who had been his mentor, protector, and closest friend for over 50 years left a void in his life that nothing could fill. During the funeral, it was Hagrid who carried Dumbledore's body, a final act of service to the man who had changed his life. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione set out on their quest to destroy the Horcruxes, Hagrid stayed behind to protect Hogwarts and its remaining students. During the year under the Carrow's control, he did his best to protect the younger students, using his position and reputation to mitigate some of the regime's worst cruelties. The Battle of Hogwarts represented the culmination of decades of struggle for Hagrid. When Voldemort and his forces attacked the school, Hagrid fought alongside teachers, students, and members of the Order to defend the place that had been his home for over 50 years. During the battle, Hagrid's half-giant strength proved invaluable against the trolls and giants fighting for Voldemort's side. But it was his moral courage, not his physical strength, that truly made the difference. He helped evacuate injured students, protected the younger ones, and kept morale high even in the most desperate moments. Hagrid's capture in the Forbidden Forest was a crucial moment in the battle. Voldemort used him as a symbol of defeat, forcing him to carry what he believed to be Harry Potter's dead body back to the castle. For Hagrid, who had cared for Harry since he was a baby, carrying his dead body was perhaps the most painful moment of his entire life. When Harry was revealed to be alive, Hagrid's joy and relief were palpable. Seeing the boy he loved like a son return from the dead was a moment of pure joy amidst the calamity of war. His cry of "Harry" echoed across the battlefield, symbolizing the hope he had never lost. After Voldemort's defeat, Hagrid returned to his role as Professor of Care of Magical Creatures with renewed purpose. The war had shown him the importance of unity among all magical creatures, and he dedicated himself to teaching this lesson to a new generation. The post-war years were marked by healing and rebuilding. Hagrid worked tirelessly to restore the Hogwarts grounds, replanting the Forbidden Forest and reintroducing creatures that had fled during the conflict. Each new life that flourished under his care was a symbol of hope and renewal. During this period, Hagrid finally had the opportunity to come to terms with his past. The public acknowledgement of his innocence in the Chamber of Secrets case, combined with his heroism during the war, finally erased the stigma he had carried for decades. Hagrid also used these years to write about his experiences with magical creatures, contributing to the academic literature on the subject. His articles, while sometimes academically unorthodox, were full of practical insights and thoughtful observations that enriched the wizarding world's understanding of its native creatures. Gradual retirement allowed Hagrid more time to pursue his personal interests, including trips to study magical creatures in natural habitats around the world. Each expedition was an adventure that renewed his love of life and his insatiable curiosity about the natural world. When we look at the complete life of Rubeus Hagrid, we see much more than simply the story of an eccentric gamekeeper or professor. We see the journey of a man who transformed his difference into strength, his trauma into compassion, and his loneliness into universal love for all living creatures. Hagrid represents something fundamental in the Harry Potter universe, the idea that genuine kindness can overcome any adversity. Expelled from school at 13, branded a criminal, deprived of his full magical education, any of these things could have destroyed an ordinary person. But Hagrid turned every apparent disadvantage into an opportunity for growth. His expulsion led him to a life dedicated to caring for magical creatures, where he discovered his true calling. His half-giant nature, which could have made him an outcast, actually gave him the strength to protect those he loved and a unique perspective on accepting differences. His incomplete education was compensated for by decades of practical learning and an emotional wisdom few educated wizards possessed. Hagrid's relationship with Harry Potter symbolizes much more than friendship between an older man and a younger man. It represents the importance of having someone who believes in you unconditionally, especially during your formative years. For Harry, Hagrid was the first person to show him genuine kindness and complete acceptance. For Hagrid, Harry represented the opportunity to be the kind of father figure and mentor he himself never had. Hagrid's passion for creatures considered dangerous or useless reflects a deep philosophy of value and acceptance. In a world where differences often lead to discrimination, Hagrid consistently championed the misunderstood and rejected. From Norbert to Aragog, from Buckbeak to Grawp, he saw beauty and value where others saw only threat. His unwavering loyalty to Dumbledore demonstrates another crucial aspect of his character, the ability to recognize true goodness and dedicate himself completely to it. Even when Dumbledore made decisions that Hagrid didn't fully understand, his faith never wavered. This loyalty wasn't blind. It was based on decades of experience that proved Dumbledore's character time and time again. Hagrid's forgiveness was also remarkable. Despite being falsely accused, imprisoned, and publicly humiliated, he never developed bitterness or a desire for revenge. When Tom Riddle was finally exposed as the true culprit, Hagrid expressed no anger, only sadness for all the lives lost due to Voldemort's lies. Although Hagrid never sought fame or recognition, his impact on the wizarding world was profound and lasting. Through his work with magical creatures, he helped change attitudes about conservation and the ethical treatment of non-human species. His innovative techniques for caring for injured or orphaned creatures have been adopted by sanctuaries throughout the wizarding world. The knowledge he developed through decades of practical experience has become a reference for a new generation of magizoologists and conservationists. As an educator, Hagrid inspired countless students to pursue careers working with magical creatures. His genuine passion for the subject was contagious, and many of his students left Hogwarts with a renewed respect for life in all its forms. His role in the Second Wizarding War, though often behind the scenes, was crucial. His ability to communicate with non-human species provided the Order of the Phoenix with important strategic advantages. More importantly, his example of moral courage inspired others to remain true to their principles, even in the face of danger. As we come to the end of this journey through the extraordinary life of Rubeus Hagrid, it's clear that his story transcends the confines of fiction to offer genuine lessons on how to live a meaningful life. Hagrid teaches us that true heroism doesn't always come in dramatic moments of glory. More often it's found in daily acts of kindness, in consistent choices to put others before ourselves, and in refusing to allow difficult circumstances to destroy our capacity to love. His life demonstrates that our past doesn't have to determine our future. A boy expelled from school in disgrace grew to become one of the most respected members of the community that had initially rejected him. This transformation didn't come through revenge or self-pity, but through decades of dedicated service and unconditional love. Hagrid's passion for dangerous creatures serves as a metaphor for our own need to embrace what we don't understand, to seek beauty in unexpected places, and to defend those who cannot defend themselves. In a world often divided by fear and prejudice, Hagrid's example reminds us that bridges can be built through understanding and compassion. Her cabin at the edge of the Forbidden Forest remains a symbol of hospitality and refuge, a place where all were welcome, where wounds could be healed, and where love was freely offered to anyone in need. In our own lives, we can all aspire to create such spaces of acceptance and healing. Perhaps most importantly, Hagrid shows us that a life well lived is measured not by personal achievements or public recognition, but by the positive impact we have on the lives of others. Every student he comforted, every creature he saved, every moment of joy he brought to the world, these are the true monuments of his existence. In the end, Rubeus Hagrid represents something we can all strive to be, a guardian of hope in a sometimes dark world, a source of unconditional love for those in need, and a constant reminder that genuine kindness, patience and compassion can truly change the world, one person and one creature at a time. Hagrid's story doesn't end with the ending of the books or films. It continues every time we choose kindness over cruelty, acceptance over prejudice, hope over despair. His true magic lay not in his imperfect spells or his impressive physical strength, but in his infinite capacity to love and be loved in return. And perhaps this is the most important lesson of all, that in the end, we are remembered not for what we achieved for ourselves, but for the love we gave and the difference we made in the lives of those around us. In this sense, Rubeus Hagrid will forever be one of the greatest wizards who ever lived. And so, everyone, we've reached the end of this incredible journey through Hagrid's life. I hope you were as moved as I was by delving into the story of this extraordinary character. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell so you don't miss any new content from the Harry Potter universe. And what moment in Hagrid's life touched you most? And don't forget to tell me which city you're watching from. I love hearing where our fans are around the world. The next video is already in the works and promises to be even more epic. Until next time, everyone, and always remember, as Hagrid taught us, a little kindness can make all the difference in the world.